All right, Nebraska Cornhuskers 2022 college football schedule preview. I'm doing a whole series of these. There's a playlist on the channel. Just find the playlist, click on it. It'll bring up the entire list of teams that I've done so far. I'm getting these teams off the Patreon page. So if you're a member over on the Patreon page, make sure you go over there, find the post I made a couple of weeks ago about the schedule previews, and just leave a comment with whatever team it is you want to see me do, and I'll be happy to do it. I'm going to do it for the entire month of April. If I finish up with the Patreon page, then I'll come back to these videos, scroll through the comments, and I'll take suggestions from the comment section on these videos about what other teams you want me to do. But up today is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Not a good year last year for Nebraska, and I'm kind of surprised they kept Scott Frost around. I think they probably should have let him go after last year. They were 3-9, and it's not just one bad year. He's been there, 4 years, yet to make a bowl game, yet to have a winning record. Just no improvement at all from the minute Scott Frost stepped in Lincoln, Nebraska till now. And that's the most troubling part. You would expect some improvement over a 3 or 4 year period. And for Nebraska, we just haven't seen any. And no matter how much Nebraska fans and Ohio State fans want to brag about the fact that Nebraska went 3-9, but all their losses were by 9 points or less, it just doesn't impress me. If a team is 9-3 and all their wins are by 9 points or less, guess what? They're going to finish ranked in the top 20. People aren't going to go, oh, yeah, well, yeah, they were 9-3, but all their wins were by 9 points or less. No one cares. You're finding a way to lose. That's all that tells me. You're finding a way to lose. And you're not finding a way to lose 1 or 2 games. You're finding a way to lose 9. That's what that tells me. So it's time to poop or get off the pot for Scott Frost. They need a winning record, 8 or 9 wins, I think. But probably 7-5 will be enough to save his job. I don't know, but not a good season last year. They lost their opening game to Illinois. They lost to Oklahoma. They lost to Michigan State. They lost to Michigan. They lost to a terrible Minnesota team. They lost to Purdue. They lost to Ohio State. They lost to Wisconsin. They lost to Iowa. I mean, it's a lot of losses. The scores are irrelevant at this point. I don't know why fans have confidence in the fact that they lost 9 games by 9 points or less when it clearly didn't give the team any confidence. It clearly didn't give the team any confidence at all that they only lost to Oklahoma 23-16 because they went out the next week and lost again. It clearly didn't give the team any confidence that they only lost to Michigan 32-29 because they went out the next week and lost to Minnesota. It clearly didn't give the team any confidence that they only lost to Ohio State 26-17 because they lost the next game to Wisconsin 35-28. And then the next one after that to Iowa. So I don't know why the fans are so confident when it's clearly not doing anything to benefit the team. So it's time to start winning games. Doesn't matter. Look, if Nebraska wins every game next year by 1 point or less, are the fans going to care? No, they're going to say, well, who cares? We won. Exactly. And last year you lost. And I'm mainly talking to Ohio State fans here because they're really the main ones that are so dumb. They tried to, oh, yeah, well, we only beat Nebraska 26-17, but look, Nebraska's a really good team. No. There's no such thing as a 3-9 really good team. The good news is that Ohio State game was played late in the year. So we only had to listen to them drool on and on about that for 2 weeks because then they went out and got their butthole pushed in by Michigan and disappeared anyway. So, that put the knish on that. So, but anyway, so Nebraska 2022 is what this video is supposed to be about, though. So let's see what they can do. Now, they finally got rid of Adrian Martinez. He transferred out, I believe, to Kansas State, and they brought in 2 transfers. They brought in Casey Thompson from Texas, who I think started like 8 games for Texas last year. Now, Texas wasn't any good either, but point is, you're getting a quarterback that does have a lot of starting experience. And then they brought in another transfer from Florida State. I would be surprised if Casey Thompson is not the starter in the beginning of the season, but we'll see. That's the decision for Scott Frost and company to make, the big decision anyway, for them to make heading into this upcoming season. But let's take a look at the schedule. Now, this isn't a prediction video. I do those starting in June. In April, I just like to look at the team's schedule, try to figure out, okay, what does the non-con game look like? Are they going to be undefeated possibly in the non-con, or is it a tough non-con? And with the conference schedule, are there tough games that you get at home that maybe you can pull off an upset? Are there some road games that may give you some trouble? Where's your bye week? Are there any trap games? Where's the rivalry games? Are there any like tough stretches of the season where you play like 2 or 3 good teams in a row? Things like that. So anyway, now Nebraska starts their season off in week 0, which they did this last year too. They played Illinois in week 0 and lost. This year, they're playing Northwestern in week 0. Now, I guess technically this is a neutral site game, but this game is in Ireland. I don't know about you, but when I think about college football in Ireland, the only 2 teams that come to mind are Nebraska and Northwestern. So this makes perfect sense to me. August 27th in Ireland, Nebraska versus Northwestern. So once again, right out of the gate with a conference game. Then you get a couple of non-con games here. North Dakota Fighting Hawks. That's not North Dakota State, is it? You better hope it's not, because they're liable to whip you. North Dakota and then Georgia Southern. So, which is down here in Uncle Lou's backyard. I live in Augusta, but I'm about an hour and a half from Statesboro, which is where Georgia Southern is. But that's a home game for you. They're coming up to Lincoln to play. They haven't been very good the last couple of years. I would assume that's a game that Nebraska should win fairly easily. And then you get the Oklahoma game. Now, this is a non-con game, but it's an old rivalry that goes back a long, long time. And this was a good game last year, no doubt about it. And it was a game people were looking forward to watching, too, because if you're a college football fan like I am, you like these old traditional games. I like watching Notre Dame and Southern Cal play every year. I like watching Texas and Oklahoma play every year. I like watching Michigan and Ohio State play every year. I like watching Auburn and Alabama, Georgia and Florida, on and on and on and on. And it's been a while since we got to see Nebraska and Oklahoma. We got to see it last year, and it ended up being a good game. Could be another good game this year. And you get them at home, and you're catching them at a good time. I mean, a lot of their talent on offense transferred out with Lincoln Riley to Southern Cal and other places, right? They bring in a defensive head coach, Brent Venables, who's never been a head coach before. And even though he is an elite defensive mind, what do we know about Oklahoma? There ain't no defensive talent there. And you can't fix that in a year. Now, I'm not saying he can't improve Oklahoma's defense at all this year, but it's not like he's going to have Oklahoma playing at a Clemson-level defense the first year that he's there. It's just not going to happen. And because he's a defensive-minded head coach, I'm not sure how successful their offense will be this year when they lost not just Caleb Williams to Southern Cal, but they also lost their backup, who was the starter at the beginning of the season, Spencer Rattler, to South Carolina. Now they bring in, Dylan Gabriel or whatever, so it's not like they're starting over. He's got a lot of starting experience. But the point is, if there's a year for someone to sort of catch Oklahoma, this would be the year. This would be a huge win for Nebraska, especially if they beat Northwestern, North Dakota, and Georgia Southern. If Nebraska is 4-0 heading into their first bye week, and yes, I said first bye week, they get 2 bye weeks since they play a week 0 game. That would be one of the biggest stories in football if Nebraska started off 4-0 next year. Can they? I don't know. Maybe they lose all 4 of those games by 9 points or less, and the fans are happy anyway. I don't know. But then you get your first bye week. You come out of that, and you host Indiana, who was probably the worst team in the Big Ten last year. I think they only won 1 conference game. They were just a disaster. Then you go on the road to play the Fighting Greg Schianos at Rutgers. He had some success there when he was there the first go-around 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, but he's yet to really get it going at Rutgers this time. You do have to play him there, but let's be real, not much of a home field advantage at Rutgers. And then at Purdue, who's a middle-of-the-road team. I mean, they're not terrible. They'll be an 8-win team, 9-win team maybe. Can Nebraska pull that one off? Back-to-back road games there. That can be tricky sometimes at Rutgers, at Purdue. Then you get your second bye week. You come out of that, you play Illinois, who beat you in week 0 last year. So can you return the favor? Can you beat them at home this year? Then Minnesota. And then 3 big games at the end of the year. 3 really big games at the end of the year. This schedule is backloaded here. At Michigan, home against Wisconsin, at Iowa. Now, in my opinion, the 3 best teams in the Big Ten West are Iowa, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. You play the other 2 in back-to-back weeks to close out the season. So the Big Ten West is going to be decided in the last 3 weeks of the season right here. And, oh, by the way, you have to play at Michigan the week before that. You could be an underdog in all 3 of those games. If you somehow went 2-1 in those 3, that would be miraculous, in my opinion. That's a tough stretch of games. That might be the toughest 3 stretch of games I've seen on any schedule so far that I've done. That's a very tough 3 stretch of games. What kind of record is it going to take to win the Big Ten West this year? Wisconsin almost always goes 10-2 in their sleep. They win 10 games and then lose to the 2 best teams they play, whoever that happens to be. That's usually what happens. Could 9-3 win the Big Ten West? It could. 9-3 could win the Big Ten West this year. I think 10-2 would definitely win it. I'm talking about 2 conference losses, by the way. Anyway, Nebraska makes it to Indianapolis on December 3rd for the Big Ten title game. What a turnaround that would be. There's no real dominant team right now in the Big Ten West. There's just not. Wisconsin just kind of is always who they are. You know, Iowa, you know what you're going to get there. Really good defense, not much offense. They like to play defense and create a bunch of turnovers. Having to play at Michigan and at Iowa 2 of the last 3 weeks of the year, though, that's brutal. That's brutal. Anyway, what do y'all think? Can Nebraska turn it around finally with Scott Frost? They've just been circling the drain ever since Scott Frost got there. I mean, he literally has done nothing to improve them from the day he got there. Is this the year that he somehow puts it together and Nebraska has a good season? And look, 8-4 would be a great season. 9-3 would be a great season. It might be good enough, depending on who the wins and losses are to at 9-3, might be enough to win the West. I'll start doing my prediction videos in June, but y'all can let me know down below what you think Nebraska's record will be in 2022. And do you think Scott – and also this. What's the bare minimum Scott Frost can win this year and keep his job? What if they go 6-6? So they make a bowl game, but they're 6-6, and they make a bowl game. Is that enough to keep Scott Frost? What do you think the bare minimum number of games is Scott Frost has to win in the regular season to keep his job? Let me know down below. And have a good morning.